Jack Clark, and I'm going to be talking to you about education in the prison systems. I personally believe that prisons should regulate education programs for their inmates to better acclimate them to crimeless lives post-releases of their sentences. This is important because in the 1990s there was a government regulation to limit and prevent funding in prisons for education. This is a problem because a lot of prisoners want to use this time to be constructive, and their choices aren't necessarily because they wanted to commit a crime, but they felt they had to, due to safety reasons, due to drug addiction problems, and they don't have the resources to get help, due to lack of education and not being able to have money to get a job and be successful, leading to them stealing, etc. My curiosity in this topic came about after my interest in the TV show Orange is the New Black. This was a very large concern for one of the characters in the show, and I decided to look into it to see if in reality education is something that is not given to our prisoners. This is also important because a lot of times prisoners are dehumanized, and as a result of that dehumanization, they're not treated the same and not given the same opportunities as most people post-release. Education decreases crime rates, and as a result of that, we're going to move into my next topic. Most prisoners in the prison system want to be very constructive. They email, they write letters, they try to contact libraries and universities and like book publishing companies asking for resources to help them get their GED or better their ACT scores or learn history or learn law or learn all of these different things so they can have an education that will provide them something better post-release. No education for these prisoners is less progress for our country because we have a larger percent of people who are uneducated, a larger percent of people who can't progress and improve their personal lives. 40% of inmates released return within 3 years of getting out of prison. This could be as a result of their living situation. This could be as a result of being back in a non-progressive environment, addiction to drugs, or personal safety. These living situations are hindering and cause people to go back because they may not have the money due to a lack of education to get the job that they need to be successful in the way that they want to. Back in these non-progressive environments, they feel they have to behave and act a certain way, and because they don't have the right to an education, they can't remove themselves from these places to better their lives. They're addicted to drugs, and as a result of this addiction, they can't focus on getting themselves out, and providing an education for these prisoners to remove themselves from these circumstances will allow them more easily to not digress back into their old habits. This education provides them an opportunity, which provides us less prisoners. Less prisoners equals less money for our government to be spending. Education is less money for the government than the amount of prisoners in the system. For every prisoner, according to a study done in Missouri by Forbes, there is $25,000 a year spent per every prisoner that we have in custody. Whereas for education per prison, it's around $5,000 to set up an education system, just baseline, and then it progresses from there based on independent funding and all of that stuff. But this lack of funding and lack of education is actually more expensive because if they don't get an education, as my previous point stated, they digress back into these old lifestyles and go back into the prisons. Therefore, our government is losing money, and we're losing progress not only in our citizens themselves, but just in general circumstances. This decreases the acclimation that our prisoners have in society because of their lack of education. Also, this saves the government a lot of money and prevents the dehumanization of our prisoners after they leave because they have the ability to set themselves up for better and progress and to get themselves opportunities that they didn't have before due to their circumstances, addictions, etc. We should regulate education in the prison systems because we can limit the number of returning inmates by providing them better outlets, better jobs, better circumstances, better cities, better communities, better homes. This education can lead to degrees, which will lead to college, which will lead to a better life, which will raise children that will not go into the prison system, which will yet again save the government money, which leads to less crime. The less crime leads to less money that we spend and a better United States. Overall, having and regulating education in the prison system is for the better of not only the prisoners, not only our government, but for us as people. With less crime, we have a safer society, we have a safer life, a safer environment, and more money, which means less taxes. So, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed my speech.